The mayor of DA in PE is a white man. So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Soli will not be touched. They will be touched, don't worry. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness.
There's also another politician. He's the president of the Black First Land First political party, the BLF. And he spoke at a rally a couple of years back in which he urged the crowd to kill white people, their children, and their pets. I'm going to see if we can expand this here and play this clip for you guys. Take a look at this clip here.
For each one person that is being killed by the taxi industry, will give 5 white people. For every one black person you kill, will give 5 white people. You kill one of us, we'll kill 5 of you. You kill one of us, we'll kill 5 of you. You kill one of us, kill 5 of you. You kill one of us, we'll kill 5 white people. We'll kill the children, we'll kill the women, we'll kill anything that we find on our way.
So there you go. That's political party leaders literally calling for the genocide of white people to happen there. And you don't think that...
Machine Political Incorrect, a very quick one. So I made a podcast. I made 10 reasons why I personally love Julius Malema, and the 10 ones that I think it's his poor moments. So it's the best and top 10 of my best and 10 of my worst. So go and listen to it. I'll click it at the end of this because I want you to understand why we love Julius Malema. And today, the stance that Julius is taking against Elon Must, not for the first time, by the way, not for the first time he's attacking Donald Trump. Julius Malema represents, for bad or worse. So, Julius represents African people in a way that makes people who hate him even more. And this is why and I know I'm not the only one, I emphasize it in the other podcast, why we don't love him. Immediately after the up and down with tweets, not the first time he's going on a tour with him, they immediately issue a letter and they go out on a media campaign to go and defend it. Because Julius Malema feels that this guy is a traitor. This guy is not a patriotic South African. This guy is even the enemy of South Africans. They even say that thing of his Starlink must not come to South Africa unless they want to pay the 30% ownership. This is the law of the country. Why would he want to bring it to South Africa and not want to comply? That thing is simple, guys. What people don't understand is, I have seen many times this thing being watered down as if it's a sign of corruption. No, it's not a sign of corruption. When a mine operates in South Africa, that mine must pay our mining dues to avoid what we're having with Zamazamas. There's nothing wrong with it. If Starlink wants to operate in South Africa, why can't Elon Musk do what other companies are doing? So this is why we love Julius Malema. He's willing to, with the 9% that he has, he's willing to stand out. He's willing to stand out to say, bring it on to me. And this is why we love him. I've lamented many times in this podcast that Julius Malema has a very difficult relationship with South African voters. Julius is people don't forgive Julius Malema. People hate Julius Malema. And you ask yourself, in moments like this, you ask yourself, why would you hate Julius Malema? Of course, those who hate Julius Malema would understand. Of course, coming from a different racial groups. But Africans in particular, why would they want to hate Julius Malema? a man who stands for their rights, the same way AfriForum stands for whiteness, Julius stands for African people, and there shouldn't be any problem with it. But anyway, listen to what the EFF. So I hope you read the statement shown above here. But you can always pause, like I always say, you can pause and read and then continue. But this now Tambo putting justice to the whole fracas. Elon Musk and Donald Trump have a tendency of this campaigning genuine causes. The West have tried to make it with Uganda and everything. By the way, whenever they were doing that, Uganda, Kenya, and the Eastern region, they were saying, yeah, this is the law in the USA, why can't you make it the law? And those presidents were saying, no, that thing, we understand, you have it there in the West, it's yours. Keep it there. For us, we don't have a problem with it. Because we don't have a problem with it, it's not priority in our country. We've got far better things. So don't dictate terms. Don't prioritize issues for us. We know which issues are of utmost importance. And as we draw our priority list, we'll know which one we'll put in front. This one's of what people do in their own spaces, in their own bedrooms. That is their own issue. And of course, you ask yourself why I'm not saying that word. I'm talking about those people. But most South Africa, we understand that monna le monna, mosadi le mosadi, baka robalana, ibile baka nyalana. But not in certain African countries, Zimbabwe being one of the examples. So what those African presidents were saying, the nation united saying, no, this is not a priority to us and don't dictate it to us. The same way South Africa must stand up to say, there is nothing like genocide. Prove it. Prove it. Machine politically incorrect. Just listen to now, Tambo, what he says. Thank you.
EFF's understanding of where these attacks are coming from and what brings them about?
Look, Paul, I think you're raising a much higher level of conversation around what Elon Musk is doing, because as the EFF, we think that this is primarily sourced at the South Africans' position against apartheid Israel's genocide against Palestinian people. And that is what we have assessed this to be. So South Africa has taken Israel to the International Criminal Court. The National Assembly, the Sixth National Assembly, has resolved to expel the Israeli embassy from South Africa and cut all diplomatic ties with Israel. And we think that this is just a culmination of all of those resolutions, and they are trying to hide behind a question that is not based on reality of Afrikaner people being treated with a sense of genocide or being ill-treated in South Africa. So the declaration by Elon Musk that the president of the EFF is an international criminal, must be declared an international criminal, is something that doesn't faze us. It's just a culmination of the U.S. foreign policy position that seeks to punish us for our position on Israel, but is seeking reasons otherwise to do so.
Yeah. The EFF leader, would he have any interest to visit the United States of America? And I'm raising that on the basis of this sanction. He ought to be sanctioned, and add to that he be declared an international criminal. Would that have been part of his itinerary at any point to want to visit America? Or for him, this is simply one of those non-issues?
Look, the president of the EFF has been declared persona non grata before he formed the EFF. While he was the president of the Youth League, he has always been someone who has been a thorn in people's sides. So for Elon Musk to declare the EFF president as an international criminal is nothing that surprises us. We had no intention to go to the United States of America to explain anything, because we knew that the country is now under the custodianship of a maniac. And that maniac is trying to assert his authority by using sanctions and cutting of foreign aid as a mechanism to determine domestic policy economic and political, of different nations, and everyone is rejecting him. And the president of the EFF has just become part and parcel of the policy resolutions of the president of the United States and the Department of Government Efficiency, which is led by Elon Musk, to cut off financial aid to countries that are not aligned to the foreign policy of Donald Trump. So, of course, the EFF is not aligned to the foreign policy of Donald Trump. So we have no intention to go and canvass our perspectives in the United States of America. If we are barred from the United States of America, it's welcome because it reaffirms us as people who are diametrically opposed to what Donald Trump represents, and we're not ashamed of that.
There is a view that perhaps it would serve no purpose at all to go toe-to-toe with an administration that seems unreasonable, and add to that, perhaps even lacks interest to interrogate South Africa's policy positions, if indeed the American administration were that interested in the formulation of our laws. Does the EFF intend continuing this tit for tat, even on social media, or is this perhaps the end of it, or is it something that you would want to see prolonged?
Look, Paul, I don't think the EFF is involved in a tit-for-tat with the United States of America. We don't have the grounding to do so, by the way. We're an opposition party in South Africa, so we don't have the standing to go with a tit-for-tat for the United States of America. The fact that the United States of America has come for the EFF should be quite telling, because we don't have any political or governance standing to speak against what the United States of America does or its relations with the state of South Africa, the Republic of South Africa. But what we're saying is that currently, as things stand, we think that the United States of America under Donald Trump does not have positive relations with any country. And they are going down a very slippery slope that is going to isolate everyone, because their position or their approach to trade relations, to diplomatic and economic relations with all nations is that this is what the United States is saying: you either succumb or you get sanctioned. And it's not going to be sustainable for them, which is why the EFF has been calling for intensified trade relations with China, with India, and with all BRICS nations, because the United States of America seems to be trying to assert its dominance on the world, and everyone must be able to decide upon themselves that we need to build trade relations with people who are not going to use foreign policy to make us succumb to what they want to happen in the entire world. So the EFF has happened to be a victim or a highlight of Donald Trump's irresponsible foreign policy. And I think Cyril Ramaphosa must be able to appreciate the fact that it doesn't need to be EFF, it doesn't need to align with the EFF, but he has to appreciate the fact that the United States of America is not engaged in proper diplomatic relations with nations it should be relating with. They are engaged in bullying, and he mentioned that in his State of the Nation address, and we hope that he'll be able to follow through because there's consequences to it.
Yeah. Finally, locally, the popular view is that these are the fruits of disinformation, misinformation by groups like AfriForum, and they came out on Saturday to say that they appreciate the attention that they are getting from the United States, and that, if anything, they would urge Trump to help them in their own home. What would your advice be to groupings like the AfriForum that seem to be egging on this kind of sanction environment?
Look, I don't think any of us should have any advice for AfriForum. They've identified themselves as people who are not part and parcel of a nation-building project. So the AfriForum is determined to establish a nation-state of Afrikaner people separate from the democratic project that has been established since 1994 in South Africa. And this has been a reaffirmation of the fact that they are not part and parcel of building unity in South Africa, because they are the ones who reach out to the United States of America when we are approaching legislation that seeks to redistribute land equitably. They are the ones who approach the United States of America when we speak about nationalization of banks. They're the ones who approach the United States of America when we speak about free education. So you can see that these are people who don't identify with the values of South Africa. So we should not be preoccupied with people of that nature. We should proceed with what we're doing. And if they want to mobilize right-wing forces to oppose progressive legislation in South Africa, they must be isolated in that nature.
As I let you go, the context of the video that has now been circulating, which Elon Musk commented on and subsequently calling for Mr. Malema to be declared an international criminal. What would have been the context of that language from the EFF leader at the time?
Look, the president of the EFF has constantly, and I think, Koli, what we must also look at is that we've been to court about it. Like we've been to the Equality Court on the same question of why do we think kill the Boer, kill the farmer, but also why do we call for the expropriation of land without compensation? And anyone who misinterprets that outside of the court determination of the Equality Court, outside of the explanation by the president of the EFF, is really being disingenuous, because we are saying that land currently in South Africa, 79% of it is controlled by a white minority. The economy, in terms of means of production, in terms of people who are producing farming, in terms of people who are producing farming produce, in terms of people who are controlling banking, in terms of people who are controlling mining, are a white minority in South Africa. And anyone who disputes that fact is being extremely disingenuous in terms of what trade and economic relations are happening in South Africa. So if anyone wants to sanction Julius Malema based on his assessment of inequality in South Africa, they're being very, very dishonest. And those people who are interacting with the United States of America and any trade partners who don't tell the truth about the economic relations in South Africa are going to misrepresent us and are going to invite sanctions, whereas we are speaking the truth as the EFF. So the president of the EFF is currently the leader, not only in South Africa, but in the continent, of how the conditions of African people are in the continent. And anyone who disputes it must come with facts, not sanctions.
I'm going to be specific. In the video, Mr. Malema talks about cutting the throat of whiteness. Now, in order for that to be understood in its right context, what was the context in which Malema said those words?
Julius Malema was speaking about Athol Trollip in Nelson Mandela Bay. Athol Trollip was the mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay at the time. And when we spoke about cutting the throat of whiteness, we're not talking about the cutting of the throat of an individual. We were talking about cutting the throat of the arrogance of the DA, because if we remember, the DA's co-governance policy was undermining of its co-governance partners at the time. So we had elected the Democratic Alliance into governance in the Nelson Mandela Bay, into Tshwane, and into Johannesburg. But their relations with their co-governance partners were undermining. So when we said cutting the throat of whiteness, we were talking about cutting the sense of arrogance and sense of entitlement, of that they are entitled to govern regardless of whoever says what. So when Julius Malema says that we're going to cut the throat of whiteness, he was saying that we're going to undermine the sense of authority that is seemingly predetermined by the Democratic Alliance. And this has been explained, but also because this was accepted by court, that when we speak about cutting throats of whiteness, kill the Boer, kill the farmer, we're speaking in a metaphorical sense. So that is what we're speaking about. And any re-explanation of that is really unnecessary.
It's now time.